Out here. All right. Well, welcome everyone to another Open Game Data Office Hours. I'm stepping in as MC today as Eric is traveling. Can everyone see my screen, the slides that I just put up? Great, thank you. So I'll just give a few words of introduction before passing it off to Field Day, who's presenting this week. So the Open Game Data Community is an NSF-funded research incubator aiming to bring together a community of researchers interested in using data generated in and around games to advance scientific understanding of thinking, learning, and decision-making. Just human thinking, learning, decision-making in general using games. So two primary goals. One, building a collection of resources on best practices on how to advance database methods in games, and then also building specific research infrastructure to support the database research methods in games, instrumentation, and the like. Where you can find some of these resources, there's an Open Game Data website where you can see case studies and links to the Game Vault and to games that are already instrumented with open data available. There's also these open office hour sessions. And that link there, the EduGames link, will give you the schedule there. You can see what's coming up. There's also information there on the Slack if you're not already on the Slack and would like to join us there. So how this session is going to work. So these office hours sessions are inspired by a series from the Statistical Education Research Group at CMU, where students or folks doing research would bring their open problems to the statistics faculty, open up their R notebook, whatever it was, messy in the middle of the problem, and talk with the faculty as though it were an office hours session, but in public. And so others could see and learn from the process of seeing experts work through the problems live. And so that's what these sessions are about. We have some presenter who's bringing a project that's in the middle, and we all have a chance to ask questions, to give feedback, and to help work through those together. These will be recorded and they're posted on YouTube, to build a library of these sessions and what we've learned from them. So a few things to keep in mind as we go. This is work that's in progress. You can expect analysis or ideas or prototypes to be rough, not yet fully developed. And it can take some courage to share work in progress. So please be considerate with your questions and your comments and feedback. Our primary goal is to help the presenter understand and achieve their goals. But these sessions are about learning for everyone involved. So feel free to ask questions if there are things you don't understand, to add suggestions to the conversation, and of course, always to reach out to the presenter offline if you want to continue the conversation later. So with that, I will hand off to the presenter. I believe that is Sarah today. Is that right?
Yes, thank you. It's me, Sarah Gagnon. I am the director of Field Day Labs Game Studio, and I'm here with Amelia Moser, who is our lead technical designer. So thank you for inviting us. I'm going to share my screen. Today, yeah, I wanted to just kind of introduce ourselves and then talk about a specific game we're going to kind of be talking about. It's called Lock's Gambit. Amelia and I make games for basically for Dave's research lab here at Field Day Lab. So um, I am kind of responsible for, actually, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a minute so I can just look at you and then we'll go back to that. But I'm responsible for kind of taking what Dave and his team hands to us, and moving it into the game process. And it's different than a lot of game studios because our games have these stakeholders. We are the kids, that are going to play this game. And we really, really want these kids to have like the best experience possible. So we bring in artists and writers and designers to really facilitate for that. We also have whatever our research or our kind of like a subject expert partner is. And then because these games are our games at least are always situated within schools. The educators are another stakeholder, and that's what Jim Matthews, who's also here, is kind of responsible for helping us understand that. And we use like our fellowship program, or sometimes just like teachers that come in and guide us. And that's a really important stakeholder. But then the fourth really important stakeholder is the education research people. And it's really kind of our framework to always work with these four stakeholders on every one of our games. I kind of look at it as a table, and you can have a three-legged table, it'll stand, but we like to make four-legged tables. So some of our games, though, come to us without a research agenda. So we were kind of built on the premise that everything would come in through a research grant, but occasionally we get a partner like the one I'm going to talk about today, which is IEEE. Um, Dave, what does IEEE stand for again? It's the International
Electrical
Engineer.
engineers.
What's the 30?
Oh, I have no idea.
I just call them International Engineer. That's what I think about them as when I think of IEEE.
Yeah,
Okay. So
30.
IEEE, they really wanted like public outreach for their idea. So they really wanted to work with us because our distribution into schools and our approach to game making, but they don't have like an internal research component that is kind of backing this. And I was talking to Dave recently about how I would love to reach out to anyone within this community to see if anyone has interest in using this game to do some research, to write a paper. It's kind of low-hanging fruit. You have a free game you can work with. You'll be the first one to write anything
Like
about it.
hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of free production.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like a dissertation in a box.
Yeah. The value added to us is that we get to learn more about games. Like we
Yeah.
really want to know more about what we're doing. We're not going to develop the agenda. We do have some ideas that could pitch to you, or if you have any students, like grad students who are looking for a dissertation, this would be like a great one. And I'll talk a little bit more about what we can do to facilitate this research. Like we do have some capacity to offer like some support for things like adding surveys, making minor changes to the game, and then Luke and whatever the data team, I don't know what they do. They'll talk about that kind of at the end, what they can offer, but some kind of infrastructure support to pull data out of the game. So does anyone have any questions about that? Does that make sense?
No, I think today we're just brainstorming potential ideas and then it can go whatever direction it goes.
Yes. And then I'll just sit and wait for an email if anybody is
Yeah.
interested.
I think
Uh,
part of this too is that I just get like as the kind of, I guess, main researcher field day, um, like I'm saturated as an investigator right now. Like I am full up on projects and ideas. My brain
yeah.
is done. So but it'd be a real wasted opportunity if a game shipped and didn't have an experiment inside of it.
Yeah, so this game came to us titled the Semiconductor Game, and that's what we had, and we decided to set it in space. So for the last year and a half, it's been the internal working title was Space Fab, but we've recently branded it and titled it. It's now called Locke's Gambit, the Silicon Frontier. And the game is in this style of kind of this graphic novel style, fun middle school themed art with a little bit of a graphic novel on the inside of the game. Okay, sorry, that's what we're gonna do. I want to share with you the teaser just so you can kind of look at it, and then I'm gonna give you a URL to play the game for about 5 minutes, if that is okay. Um, so let me open up the teaser. And the reason I'm calling it a teaser instead of a trailer is because um we haven't finished making the game yet. And so there's like parts of the game that are missing from the trailer. And for those of you who are going to put this online, this recording online, this will soon be up on Vimeo, so we can share it like a link to it here. Okay, I'm gonna share it. Can everybody see?
Yeah.
All right, so that's the game. I'd like to now invite you all just to spend like 5 minutes playing it because actually one of the ideas I've been thinking about this, I've been waking up super early and I've been thinking about the game as played versus the game as expected. So here's the game as played now experience. So Luke, you said there's a way to set a timer here so people can kind of pause and come back. You're muted. Does anybody else know how to set up a timer? Do we need a timer? All right, everybody just open the game and then you can kind of play it for a few minutes. I think that's the best way to get into
Yeah.
it.
It's great.
I'll set a timer on my phone. We'll go old school. It's like a different form of technology. It's not that hard. All right, 5 minutes starts now.
I must share just so we have something in the recording. Because I don't want to have to edit it because that's more work. So you all can ignore me, but I'm just going to play through it.
That's a great idea. Dave, one thing to mention is this is all onboarding and all intro,
Uh-huh.
and you have to stop after the first contract or it'll crash.
Oh, okay.
And can you remind us who the four stakeholder groups were? There were kids,
Yeah, I'll write
the
them in the
education
chat.
researchers.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
This is your 30-second warning. I don't think Dave has gotten to the end yet, though. I'm just going to let you finish this up, Dave, since you're almost at the end.
Okay.
This is probably the messiest one of the games in its current state.
Oh, I've got a route back. I see what's happening. I've got this route that keeps going back and forth.
So click on your ship then.
It that doubled it up. So I gotta do ah.
The problem is that you're not using a conductor.
Yeah, I know I've got to get over to this thing, right?
Yeah, you should delete the route to
Yeah. How do I delete it?
right
Select the
there. You
paths.
click you click it
Oh,
while
I
it's
got it.
yeah.
You actually click on it. Got it.
Yeah. Oh, you still haven't done the fab game. I'm gonna let everybody keep playing because I think Dave's probably playing it just as is anyone else finished? Okay, I'm gonna let you guys keep going. Congratulations, you made your first semiconductor. Oh, don't click that, it'll crash.
Don't click that. I'm gonna click it.
Okay. In our playtest, the kids love. Oh, wait, did it work? Oh, well, this is being developed. Okay, you can
Oh,
stop sharing.
okay.
Um, oh man, the kids when they crashed it in our
Oh, it's so
playtest
much joy.
recently, they were like, "We crashed your game," and then they were like, "We're reading your code." They were so excited about the error codes. They were like, "We've got your code now." Oh, I love listening to these insane kids. Um, okay, so this is a pre-alpha. This is in the phase of what we call a horizontal slice, which is the first time we've seen all of the different components of the game glued together. And so this is just our onboarding intro level. So Amelia is going to briefly talk about what the structure of the game is so you can understand like what is this game. Keep it brief, Amelia, because we're going over time.
sure. Do you want to share your screen again, or
Yeah,
should I?
I can share my screen.
Yeah, so you all just played through one level or one chapter of the game in which you complete a single contract. Um, the levels as designed so far, we have 13 of those contracts as a player plays through. And each one of those consists of these four mini games. The overall kind of learning goal of this game is really to portray the field of semiconductor production, of microchip production, and all of the different kind of subfields and aspects of that, just to kind of get kids aware and excited about, where all of the microchips that are powering the world actually come from and how they're made. Um, so the four mini games are covering the aspects of the physical layout of chip design, how you kind of use metals and semiconductors and insulators to create these microscopic circuits that go in every uh, computer chip. And then the material research minigame has players kind of exploring the electrical properties that make all of those things work. So you're placing samples in your test chambers, measuring the current and voltage and kind of the response. And as players advance in that minigame, they'll be able to explore doping and kind of the properties of semiconductors specifically. And then from those mini games, you move on to the supply chain, where you have to actually go out into the world, in this case, into the solar system, and gather all of the materials that you need to actually produce these chips. And then in wafer fabrication is kind of the uh, micro game time attack, where you're trying to then produce your chips at each of the stations involved in semiconductor fabrication as quickly and precisely as possible. So that's one contract loop, and we have uh, about a dozen of those throughout the game. One of the kind of degrees of freedom that players have as they advance through here um, is there are some more advanced contracts later in the game. So in the beginning, just to kind of introduce the core concepts and keep players on kind of a scaffolded introduction path, we have single contracts for a few loops through. But then as they start gathering new advanced materials, like high temperature resistant, high power resistant, uh, light emitting semiconductors, they'll start to explore some of those additional properties that semiconductors can have and kind of how they're useful in the real world. And then they'll also get some options to go into trickier puzzles. You saw in chip design, just again, the very basic onboarding of connecting inputs to outputs. But as players move on, they'll have different layers of metal and semiconductors. They'll be creating transistors and diodes according to the real, physical principles at play. And some of those trickier puzzles can get pretty difficult. So this is one of the kind of variables that could be potentially looked at is, which players go for those trickier puzzles, those more challenging contracts that they could take on, and which players kind of stick with the basic main path that they always have access to.
Awesome. Okay. So basically for a little bit of background about some of the big design questions we've had is that with this game, we are trying to teach something about semiconductors to these kids, and other games have been made in this area that are much, much more complex than our game and require a certain kind of player type, a certain kind of interest in logic puzzles, or maybe pre-distribution,
Disposition.
thank you, to the field. And then there's another set of games that are super abstracted, mostly kind of like logic games. And our idea for this one, based on what our partner wanted, was to like kind of help give a bunch of different kids an idea that there's a lot of different roles that they could play in this field, and then there's a real need for career, like people going into these careers. And there's a lot of different jobs that you could have. So you could go into that like fab game, and that could be what you do, or you could be the supply chain guy, whatever. So we actually have attempted to make a game that is way more concrete than a lot of those abstract symbol games, but much more for beginners. And this has been like the design challenge of this, and what I think really Amelia's like brilliance has done in this game. It's so hard to make something that is concrete about something so complex. And so we've made a lot of decisions of where to hand wave about how the science works. As you could imagine, like if you have to show some UI about electrons moving around, there's lots of very specific ways that can happen. And then there's lots of UI that can help a player say like, okay, I did it. And one of the things that I've set as a rule for our team is that the players don't need to know about electrical engineering in any way before going into this game or semiconductors, that they can just play this game as a game. And so one idea I had for research, and then now we'll open it up for other people's ideas, but was based on this Howell, Stevens and Isles framework that there's like an updated one in 2016 that I've read a couple times, but it's kind of based on this framework that he developed, and it is about how ludic knowledge or knowledge within the game functions. And so they have this kind of this grid of 9 approaches. So I won't talk about the procedural, semantic, and episodic as much, but what I want to talk about is like intraludic is things that you learn in the beginning of the game, later on. There's also transludic, things that you learn from playing other games that you bring into the game. And then there's extraludic, which is information that is outside of the world. And I am really curious how kids um who are gamers who know something already about semiconductors compare to kids who don't play games at all, um, and are interested. I don't even know if this category exists. If you can be a non-gamer interested in semiconductors, that category seems non-existent. But you could imagine kids who just don't know anything about semiconductors who also don't play games. We really wanted that to be a possibility, but I'm really interested in what we can learn from how we played and what aspects of the game made it like how we were able to build knowledge differently across those different kinds of player types. And there's these different kinds of knowledge, procedural knowledge, semantic knowledge, and episodic knowledge, I think is also something we could also include extra ludic outside the game, um, maybe like kids who are doing this in a classroom versus not a classroom. Anyway, there's a lot of different ways that you could like manipulate this and change this, but I spent a lot of time thinking about this while building this game. Like, just can we make a game that kids that don't know anything about electricity can go in and learn? And can we make a game for kids who love games and who are interested in semiconductors can get more inspired? So this is just one idea that I had. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Oh, I was supposed to actually, I'm just going to share this presentation and it has my email address. I'm going to add my email address here. But I think we're actually doing great on time. So I'm just going to say one more thing is that along with that, our studio could, you could take this direction or any other direction that you're interested in. This is just one that I kind of want because I want to know like how we did. Like I've been thinking about this. Amelia's been working on this so hard, and our design team has been working on this, asking this question. So I'm really hoping we can get some insight. Maybe just Luke's data team will be able to help us with that. But there's so many different options. And this is what we're willing to do for you or your students. We're willing to do any kind of survey input. So we have built like survey tools that we can include into this game. Typically, well, we'll go into the details of that if you're interested. It's like two, usually two, max three, I think. Jim could know more about that. And then there's like a limited number of questions you can get away with that kids will actually answer in the middle of gameplay. So we have some frameworks for that. And we can have them played. Well, I'm not going to get into the details. I'm like, I'm going to talk
Yeah.
about surveys now, which I'm probably the wrong person anyway. The other thing we can do is we can make minor adjustments to the game and have different versions of the game out in the world. Now, we do have like some, but limited budget for those kinds of things, but those are things that we could do. So for instance, we could do a version of the game without any story and then with the story in it.
Uh,
So, all right, that's me. I'll open it up to you all.
uh-huh. Yeah, let's just kind of pretend that it's wide open and that's the starting spot. Because I feel like we've run into so many of these research projects where if you work with hardcore like learning scientists, for example, they're always going to come at things a certain way and want everything about the design to follow the research question. And I want to try something else, which is let's make a game. And then while we're there, say, well, what research questions can we have that would be supported by this fundamental design and take it from that direction? Really, that framework's really a nice place to start, Sarah. I've got to say, like that's a good launch pad, I think, for a bunch of potential experiments.
And can you say more about are there already existing relationships with schools where this is going to be deployed, or like how does that work once development is complete or as it's in process?
So there's two different ways we think about that. One is just broad distribution that we don't have contact with, and one is like in-game testing we do. So there are schools that we're going to be linking with and kind of having surveys go out with this in the end of production. So between now and October when this game is done. So those are a different kind of relationship that we have. But then there's a distribution network, and then this game will get I anticipate 50,000 plays in the first year, something around that. So
Safely. Yeah.
you'll get like buckets of data right away. And
Yeah.
then we also have a very strong relationship with Try Engineering, which is the education arm of IEEE. And they'll be doing a more in-depth style integration with like support materials. They're going to pay for translation into Spanish, likely, as well as have translation supports into other languages that will be outside of the game, but supporting kids who have other things. So,
Mm.
Hi, it's Sherry. I sorry, I don't have my camera on, but can you say
Disembodied
a little bit
researcher.
more, disembodied researcher in the wild? Can you say a little bit more about the relationship with IEEE and the funding? Like what were the funders' goals in building the game? What like and specifically I'm thinking about learning goals. Typically when you're designing a game, you're like, we want kids to learn X, Y, Z. You talked a little bit about understanding the options and careers and pathways and things like that. But what did they want you to, what did they want the game to do?
I'll say one thing and then I'm going to hand it to Amelia for a little bit more of a detailed answer. I always try to find like the big goal, like the big like prize. And for them, recruiting people into the field is their big prize. They want to inspire people to come work for this. The funder is Try Engineering. They had the funding internally, but also through one organization and specifically that has a series of semiconductor fabrication places. And when he plays this game, he's like, "This is my job, guys. You just made a game that describes my job." And he really wants to see more people as engineers working in this field. That's our big hairy.
He's awesome. He just loves and he loves his job. You know,
Yeah.
it's just a deep love and has this plant and he talks about it like a bakery almost. He's like, it's kind of like making cookies, was one of the metaphors.
Mhm. And I did make sure that I was like, I did say like by choosing to make a puzzle game or more of a puzzle game, we were choosing not to make this for every single player type. And a lot of times people want the like the most the most players, they want a game for every player, that's like not a
Everything to
kind of
all
game.
people.
A game for every player is
Yeah,
not one of the games that you can
one of
choose.
the game types. Yeah.
So I said, let's make a game that really is for kids who maybe didn't realize this was an option for them and their career, but who would maybe be interested in engineering. So, like, if I had played this game as a kid, even if I had loved the game, I never would have been like, that's the job for me. I wanted to be an artist my whole life. That's what I was gonna do. And they like gave the thumbs up with that kind of framework for what kind of kid. Amelia, are there other things that you think came up in the learning goals?
Yeah, that definitely was the primary motivation, is just getting kids kind of aware and excited about this field and the different kind of sub branches of it that they could participate in. Especially because, integrated circuits are such a kind of cornerstone of modern life. This was kind of the original push behind Try Engineering's sort of package of learning resources, was just exploring semiconductors and integrated circuits. And um, they heard about us and wanted to make a game kind of as part of that package of resources. So it's really about lighting that fire and taking kids who are maybe have like a passing interest in engineering or science, and kind of putting a billboard on semiconductors and saying, hey, this is important, this is interesting. There are all kinds of ways to approach this field. Um, Kind of as part of that, almost as a peripheral learning goal, we always try to take the approach that in order to get played in classrooms, uh, the games have to hit some of those classroom, science standards and things like that. And so we wanted to find a balance between something that was kind of authentic to and had a high fidelity representation of what this field is, while also hitting on some of the kind of middle school, early high school learning concepts that would come up in an engineering class. And so we tried to get, just a little touch of like, voltage and current and some of the basic electronics, and some like, there's a little bit of chemistry in there, especially with like doping, um, just as a kind of sprinkling of it kind of leans on our educators as stakeholders, that that's what they're looking for, is a game to communicate those things. And we find that when it's in this broader framework of a story and a world and a real life context, that can just make it all come alive. So that's kind of the needle we're trying to thread, is hitting all of those.
Yeah. Yeah, to make it really relevant, not just to their goals, but also the teacher goals. And that's what gets it played a lot, is when we can actually do both of those things. Because we can't get it funded if we don't do what they want, but we can't get it in classrooms if teachers aren't happy.
Jim, you had a question about how this relates to the Ludic Knowledge Framework. Did you want to ask that?
No, I was just going back to the Sarah's table, and if you're measuring these things, we need some baseline to know like which of these categories does a particular player slash student fall into. And I was just curious of what instruments were already out there to figure out what those categories are. How do you measure those categories when a player comes to the table, so to speak?
Um, if you're talking about player types, like her framework, I've been Googling around and trying to see if there's like a rubric that goes with this framework but that'd be judging. I guess it is kind of a cross player and game together, which is kind of interesting. Um, the closest thing that we've had to it is that we've got these two instruments that we've used in a couple projects now that measure interest and values. So they're two different instruments, and they're both like really well established instruments, and they're very fruitful, we're finding. So if you ask players about it, you definitely see lots of a spread. Kids are falling in different categories within it, and we were able to confirm that you saw differences in how they played based on how they landed on these interest and values taxonomies. So we do have those floating around, and those would map to this in some way for sure.
Yeah, and the two types of like what was it? Interludic and sorry, I closed my presentation. I'm gonna open it up real quick. There's the interludic and transludic. Um I almost think that the interludic one for this purpose should be made like a subset of the transludic and kind of make it be like puzzle games. So kids who like puzzle games and then kids who like games, because kids who like games were like, oh, you should change expected revenue to money. We didn't even know that was money. Like money looks like this in games. And I was like, oh, that was super helpful information. They're like, and it should be up here on the screen. They had lots of opinions, but where it should be. But then the difference between someone who, like a lot of our feedback was make it a um make it a first person shooter, make it so you can run around. And so these kids are going to have different input from kids who like puzzle games. And they're going to have a different ability set from kids who are drawn to puzzle games. And I'd really like to know the difference between those things too. Kids who don't play games and kids who play different kinds of games.
I think to the funder goals also one of the interesting because you could look at this knowledge framework as what players are bringing into the game and so making it so that the game can speak to all those different player types.
Or
But
some
there's
of
also
them.
the question of what players are taking out of the game. Like the big funder interest is very extra ludic in the sense of whatever players encounter here, they want them to bring out and consider as a career.
Yeah.
Um, and so it would be interesting to think about kind of measuring in both of those directions. In
Uh-huh.
particular, with kids considering this as a career, that's a very lagging measure. Like
Yeah.
it'll be a long time before you know if any of these kids decide to go into semiconductors.
Yeah. That was the
So
moment I
just
decided to go down this path,
yeah, so
retrospective.
I
Yeah.
wonder what the short-term like are there known short-term metrics that are reliable indicators of what kids are considering as future careers?
I think the
And like
most
what does that
basic
space look
one would
like and how
be
could you measure
I know
that? Yeah.
this exists as a career. Like
Yeah.
Sure.
that
That's
was yeah, that was one of the most basic ones. I mean, I hope that they don't think and it's in space.
I
yeah.
was just gonna
Or
say,
some
I want a career piloting to different planets to pick up the resources. And,
We did
Well, you can
see
be a
that
truck driver. That's the
no, interplanetary truck driver.
we did hear teachers when we made this other game called Legend of the Lost Emerald say, like, in my town that I grew up in, I thought you could be a doctor, a lawyer, or a teacher. I didn't realize you could be an underwater archaeologist. And that was such a moment for me of realizing the power of even just knowing a different list of career options. So I think about that a lot. The other area that could be investigated in this game is that one of the big, well, actually, I just thought of two, and maybe Amelia, you can talk about the AI literacy one. But for me, I thought a lot about the reason why we put it in space is that we wanted there to be some ethical questions about the supply chain to emerge. Because when you think about semiconductors, there's a lot of ethics around like land sovereignty and material sovereignty. For instance, I heard the other day there's no poor countries, there's only poor people because, we go around to all these countries and take all the resources that they own. And that's a really complicated thing to have in a game that's about the real world. And so we made up a fictional world where these questions of sovereignty and material ownership and sovereignty was really the narrative element. So that could be something that is investigated, like just kind of like, does that change how people think about that at all? Because it's talked about a lot, like your iPhone is made from the blood of, the whatever African children, and it's interesting. Amelia, do you want to talk about the AI component?
Yeah, it's something that is something we were thinking about in approaching the narrative and the context within this game is uh, kind of part of the related to semiconductors right now, especially, and just the broader world. We felt it would was really timely and a real kind of opportunity to explore how people interact with AI. And so you saw we have a little robot character, and that's something we've had in a few of our different games, like a little robot advisor character. Um, and we wanted to really kind of question that in this game and explore what that looks like, and what the shortcomings are of having all of your interaction with a computer. And um, that's something that'll come through mostly in the story. It's not something that's kind of mechanically represented much in the game. Um, but it's one of those additional kind of pieces of context that we wanted to explore.
The AI helpers in the game, or the little robots, are where we're gonna like manipulate that and kind of have that come in narratively, because basically the person giving you the information for what to do becomes more and more suspect as the game goes on.
The meta narrative. Yeah, field day games always have some sinister meta narrative. It's
We had so many playtesters, even just starting the game, they were like, "Oh, I gotta talk to a clanker." So these are like the attitudes that we're encountering out
You're
there.
gonna get the xenophobic anti-AI racist
Yeah.
And then you also had one kid that was like, I
disposition.
would die for Pal. I would die for her. Like we had like very strong affects towards this like helper bot. So it was very fun.
think it's good that you have those because my uh, limited experience observing games is when they're not there, some of the students create their own meta narrative
Uh,
to go alongside this. So, you know, go ahead and keep them in the game rather than looking for something outside of
a,
it.
a designed meta narrative that's still working towards a certain experience. Yeah, that's great.
That is something I'm really interested in. That could be another research idea, is something around like the narrative. Like,
Yeah,
does the narrative support it? What kinds of
yeah,
kids like it? What kinds don't? I
yeah.
think more specificity, what works about the narrative. I mean, that hard thing about doing narrative in games, is oftentimes, unless you have a large budget, you have to read, and some kids hate reading.
Yep.
So we try to make the game playable without reading. That's been our new requirement on ourselves in the last few years, is that the onboarding is, maybe I would say you could figure it out, especially if you like figuring things out. But 95% of the game should be playable without having to read something. That doesn't mean they don't have to look something up and read it. I just mean like forced game dialogue and helper text. They have to be able to read to play this game, to be clear.
Well, I don't want to fill up the space, but I'll say there's definitely a theme around trying to compare the way different kids on that scale, the kind of ludic scale, perform within the game. There's something there, and there's definitely something around some interest and value related stuff. And then the lead indicator is called career interest, and there are instruments for that in different kinds of career interest. I'm sure we could find one around engineering and or make one based on something very similar that would be a decent instrument that we could embed. So those two are on the table already. Kind of curious what else is in the middle of here? Something around narrative. I mean, we've talked about narrative, no narrative, but some of the dimensions that we've been exploring in like recent proposals have been things like, do the NPC's self-efficacy align with the self-efficacy of the player as a dimension to explore? Or there's also the abstractness of the narrative. So how grounded is it compared to how abstract is it as a dimension for different kids, for different outcomes, which all could be manufactured pretty cheaply from where we're at, right? So there's a whole bunch of narrative experiments we could run with this game.
Well, I'll hand this back to you, Paul. I just want to, because I know we're heading to time, I just want to spend 2 minutes pitching something. If you guys know any grad students, any researchers who would like to work on this, I feel like we've invested so much time and real thought into making this game. I love to know something. I love one sentence of science to be made about what we can know about learning using this as an instrument. That's just like a real desire I have.
Yeah.
I remember a long time ago, Dave used to say like one of his goals was just to write one sentence of science that would add to what we know about the world. I think now maybe he wants more than one sentence. He's a little
Yeah.
greedy, but I think
Still pretty
I
hard
yeah, it's
to be
so
able to say something confidently, like anything.
I just I just really want to offer ourselves and just like if you're like, oh, I'm just busy or this isn't my thing, if you could please go out into the world. I'll send out the trailer to this game as well, and we would really love that. And the sooner the better. We are going to be having production budget on this game until mid-August. We can still add like surveys and do little bits here and there afterwards. It's just easier now. But yeah, so that's my pitch. My desire is like if you do know anyone, I put my email in here. I also put the slides here. But Amelia and I both really want to be able to use this both for kind of what we know about education, but also what we know about design. And it's really meaningful to us. And these games are out there having great impact. And I think IEEE would really appreciate it as well. So, all right, over to you, Paul.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Sarah and Amelia. And if it's all right with you, we could share these things also in the Slack, the links to the slides, your email, etc. Okay, great. I can follow up
Yeah.
with that right after this call. So thank you everyone for coming. Yes, spread the word to your communities and researchers, and please reach out to Sarah and Amelia if you have
They're
other
all on Slack
ideas or
too.
connections. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone, and I will hope to see you next time in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Good to see you all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care. Thanks all.
Bye.